One of the main problems with Christians is that we really find it hard to fall in love with our neighbourhoods. And I reckon something that really helped me in this idea is that I read a book once called Rural Poverty Unperceived by a guy called Robert Chambers. Gee, when I say I read the book, actually I only ever read the introduction, but it was the best introduction I ever read. So if you read one introduction in life, you read that book. But he makes this great point, and the point he makes is this, is that if at this point, right now in history, in the middle of this interview, there was a malnourished child from one of those pictures we used to see of overseas children with flies and bloated or that. If that child was sitting here right between us, what would happen? And what would happen is probably you and me would stop this interview, we would stop everything we're doing, and one of us would whip forward and put a blanket over the child, or we'd meet the child's medical needs, we'd feed the child, we'd take the child home. I mean, everybody would respond in that situation. Nobody would just sit here and do nothing if a child was in need right before us. The point is, though, we know at any one time in history, there's 30,000 people like that going to die every day. And we know there's over 1 million children probably living in poverty at any one time. What's the difference? We don't stop the interview, we don't suddenly run off and get our credit cards and zap a whole lot of money overseas. The difference is the proximity. The difference is if the child was here, I would rearrange my whole life because I would have a proximity relationship with that child. And I think what we don't understand about our neighbourhoods is this, is that the reason why we don't fall in love with our neighbourhoods is because often we don't spend the time actually relating to the people in our neighbourhood. If we spent the time actually in relationship with our neighbours, spending time hanging out with them, hearing their stories, our heart would break afresh and we would fall in love with the people we live near. I think Jesus primarily came, one of the reasons he came is to create communities of hope. I think constantly through the gospel he's creating these communities where there's really wonderful different values of hope. And I think what we've done is we've come and created Bible study groups, or come and created church services. But a Bible study group or a church service is an event, whereas Jesus wanted to create a community of people who do life together. But in the end, the church service, the Bible study group is just the public expression of the wonderful acts of community which is happening elsewhere for the rest of the week. And actually, in some senses, the Eucharist just flows out of the act of community for the rest of the week. And I think we've got it the wrong way around. We make the gathering the priority as opposed to the community forming the priority, which the gathering is just the expression of. I just feel really sorry for people who spend their life going to different churches and going to churches outside the locality. Because what I think happens is actually what they've done is they've adopted a form of faith which is a consumer form of faith, where they spend their time looking for the right product and treating the church and the community of God as a product that you can consume. And if one product doesn't do good enough, you go and find another product. And you spend your life cruising the city in the supermarket of churches trying to find the right product you want. I think they've totally missed the point of church. Church is the community of believers who gather together in one place. And I think, it's not about finding the perfect fit. It's about belonging to a group of people. I think Christians historically, members of the church historically have two responses to their living situation. And normally young adults have the motel response. So what they do is they treat their home like a motel, and they just go in, they grab some food from the microwave, they eat, they sleep, and they leave. And I think the motel approach severely limits us being able to involve our neighbours. The other approach is, I think, the classic family approach in the neighbourhood is that their home becomes a castle. So instead they go home, they lift the drawbridge and protect themselves from the world because they've been out there all day and now they want to protect themselves and just live their own insular life. And I think both those responses are tragic because they miss the point that so much of the gospel is about people just eating with one another. I mean, if you go through, I think, Luke's gospel, you'll find that Jesus had 10 meals. The guy was fascinated with eating with people. He was constantly eating with people. He was called a glutton. The tragedy in our lives is that we don't eat with anybody other than our families or the people in our flats. And we've got to realise that if we want to form communities in our neighbourhood, it comes at a cost. Something's got to go. You can't add some more things in. And if we want to start forming relationships with our neighbours, something actually has to change in our life. We can't just try harder. Most Anglicans I know are probably the hardest working people that I know. So it's not about trying harder, it's about actually getting rid of some things in your life so you can spend more time having meals with your neighbours. Just realise that if we could just one night a week, every week invite a neighbour over for a meal, our neighbourhoods would be transformed. Simple as that. Make a commitment that one night a week we bring our neighbours over, we have a meal with them, we have a little laugh with them, we pour the wine, and everybody's happy. And our neighbourhoods will be transformed if we've made that commitment.